Good evening and welcome to Performance Anxiety's ninth online reading event, the Twin Peaks edition. Tom and Kristen have been kind enough to let us take over the reading in celebration of the upcoming release of These Poems Are Not What They Seem, an anthology of Twin Peaks-inspired poetry. The anthology is available for pre-order now at apeppublications.com and will be officially released on March 7th. If you haven't listened in before, Performance Anxiety is an online reading series hosted via Skype on the third Thursday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central. If you are a poet or writer who would be interested in sharing your work at a future event, you're more than welcome to get in touch with the co-organizers on Twitter. Tom Starsky will be reading tonight, and I'll share his contact info when he does. You can also get in touch with Kristen Garth, the other co-organizer of the series and the co-editor of These Poems Are Not What They Seem. I'll let you know how when she shares her poem with us in just a minute. A quick note here that if you do get in touch, our next reading will be on March 19th at the usual time of 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central. I'm Jeremy Galkey. I run a small press called APEP Publications, and I have the privilege of being the MC of tonight's reading. At each of these events, they usually feature 10 readers who each have up to 5 minutes to share a selection of their writing with us. Typically, folks read live in a Skype call, but in the spirit of the name Performance Anxiety, sometimes readers choose to share their work with us via other means. So the second half of tonight's reading will be a collection of recordings of poems from the anthology. Tonight we have 13 readers, each of whom has work, and these poems are not what they seem. So without further ado, we'll introduce the co-editor of the anthology and the co-founder of Performance Anxiety, Kristen Garth. Kristen Garth is a pushcart, best of the net, and Risley-nominated sonnet stalker. Her sonnets have stalked journals like Glass, Yes, 521, Luna Luna, and more. She is author of 15 books of poetry, including Pink Plastic House, Shut Your Eyes, Succubi, Candy's Cigarette Woman Child Noir, Gothic Fever Dream, and the forthcoming The Meadow. She is founder of Pink Plastic House, a tiny journal, and co-founder of Performance Anxiety, this online reading series. You can follow her on Twitter at Lola and Jolie. That's LOLAANDJOLIE, and her website is kristengarth.com. Go ahead, Kristen.
Thank you, and thank you for publishing this anthology. I'm going to read first from my intro that I wrote for the anthology. It just explains a little bit about what appealed to Twin Peaks about me, or for me. And here it is. It is both sad and honest to say the television character I most related to growing up was a dead girl. In 1990, I too was a 17-year-old small-town girl being abused by a father who read her diary. When I started watching Twin Peaks and was introduced to a blonde ingenue wrapped in plastic, I didn't recognize myself in her Hollywood film noir beauty, but I recognized the details of her fictional life. Self-awareness seemed to arrive for me in the same season a teenage body floated out of a river to be unwrapped by a nation. What I recognized of myself in her story made me feel seen and not alone. It made me feel that a male director and an audience of millions saw small-town female suffering as epic and important. And I'm actually going to read 2 poems tonight, and the first one is not in the anthology, but it's a Twin Peaks poem I wrote on the same theme, and it's called The Secret Society of Laura Palmers, and it's going to be in my upcoming book from Hedgehog Poetry Press called Dewey Decimals, about my sexual awakening in the library, which was one of the few places I had free reign as a child. So anyway, The Secret Society of Laura Palmers. For Jennifer Lynch, author of The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer. Our fathers make us Lauras, yours with art, mine with his heart. We're their transcriptionist, the obscenities of 17. Hearts they have, mine hidden, yours bidden by Lynch himself to just be Laura Palmer. Though you are his own daughter and 22, Somehow he knew you would imbue his show with orgiastic veracity. You speak page diary to me, small beach town girl, opened up some nights, spread leg fire, deprived books, fingers, flashlights, to be a piece of demonology who he acquired through genealogy to take apart. Your father only used you for your art. And the second poem I'm going to read is in the anthology, and it's called Peepholes, and it's about Audrey Horne, but it's also just like me in the library about how girls often learn things in life in untraditional ways because no one, explains things. So anyway, here's Peepholes. She learns it all through peepholes, the way you do when you're a girl. Like whispers, sly as uncle's lurid giggles, things they say about the taste of girls, her age, down by the river, like she isn't even there. She spies through slats in closets, unicorns, a gift a balding man bequeaths a teen and lies about its purity. A horned horse grift between her fingers, key of glass to where the girls are dealt like cards and disappear. Their dealer, all in black, the coldest stare between riddle, reproof. The owner's here. In bed, she waits for truth this place imparts. Her daddy comes to claim his queen of hearts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristen. Our next reader was the co-editor of These Poems Are Not What They Seem. It's Justin Karcher. Justin Karcher is a Best of the Net and Pushcart nominated poet and playwright born and raised in Buffalo, New York. He is the author of several books, including Tailgating at the Gates of Hell. He is also the editor of Ghost City Review and co-editor of the anthology My Next Heart, New Buffalo Poetry. He can be found on Twitter at Justin _Karcher. That's JUSTIN_KARCHER, or on Instagram, The Man About Town, THE:_ABOUT:_TOWN. Take it away, Justin.
Thank you very much. This is my introduction to this great book. I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York, a psychiatric fishbowl on the eastern shore of Lake Erie, where we're always dreaming up bigger worlds. After all, we're surrounded by bodies of water. That sense of exploration, it's in our blood. But all that we want, it's always just out of reach. So we end up bashing our heads against the glass, and our broken pieces that fall to the ground, well, we pick them up and form stories out of them. The stories we tell each other in bars, in diners, in empty factories, when we're staring at mirrors, at the windows of police cars, staring down at bottomless cups of coffee and wondering where our faces went. Where did they go? Are they wandering through the darkness of this psychiatric fishbowl? What is really hidden beneath the surface? When you grow up surrounded by people trying to figure out who they are, you realize that everyone is a character with a story to tell. I'm going to make an educated guess and say that Buffalo is no different from your hometown. There are characters and there are stories, but also this darkness that needs to be explored. That's what drew me into the world of David Lynch's Twin Peaks, because it reminded me of where I grew up, the people that inhabit the town and their stories, how they struggle with forces that aren't quite human, but also very human. Love, lust, drugs, coffee, pie, music, but also demons and things that shouldn't talk. Are you monster or man? Are you girl or body bag? How do you make it through the night without losing your mind because of the mysteries? But also, how do you pick up your pieces in the morning and go to school or work? Can you even stop the mysteries from following you? These are poems about people trying to tell their stories, for good and for bad. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Justin. Next up, we have Tom Starsky, who is a high school mathematics teacher. His chapbook of poems, Threshold, is available from Another New Calligraphy, and Recent Starred Trash is forthcoming from Marles Karks. He lives in Chelsea, Massachusetts, with his wife, Christy, and their two cats, Niles and Daphne. You can find him on Twitter at Tom Snarsky. That's TOMSNARSKY. And if you're interested in finding more about performance about anxiety or signing up to read, you can email him directly at tomsnarsky@gmail.com. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, and thank you for emceeing tonight. It's been a real pleasure getting to be a reader. And so I'm going to read a couple of poems that are not from the anthology, and then, like Kristen, end with the one that is in it. And this first poem is very, very short. It's called Song. You love me like an eave, feeding rain to the gutter. I love you like a gutter, fielding rain from the eave. This next poem is less a poem than it is an excerpt from the beginning of that chapbook that's coming out from Marles Karks in May. It's called Recent Starred Trash, and this part begins with an epigraph from Ryan Equis, who was kind enough via Twitter message earlier today to confirm that that's indeed how you pronounce his last name, and to correct this epigraph for me, because I had gotten it wrong, which is kind of cool to hear that. The epigraph says, "This isn't about what could have been, but the past bores a hole in my heart, and I write into it, as if entering a tunnel. Gold threaded through all the cracks in your hands and silver through your voice. This isn't mysticism. It's diamonds made of paper mache, swollen like a secret on the tip of your bitten tongue. Memory reddens my face like a rose-tinted scar. You cannot tell that burned flesh is burned until it heals, or doesn't. Silver moon held up to our burning ratio of stars, for all the world, its middle auburn hair. There's a stench greener than philosophy echoing through this love. The reply all slurred and sarcastic, and my heart is a penny squashed by an oncoming train. I read Le Ravissement de l'Olvestein for the first time when I was in high school, and you were a doe that had not emerged from the thickening woods in my heart. Ben Mirov once said he kind of hated the word heart in poems, and here I am, throwing it in everywhere. There's a river, and another river, and somewhere in between them lies the body of the spirit of explanation, totally cold. Not to be confused with Ernst Meister's Representation's Corpse, that translation from Faust and Frederick. They died on different days. I'm sorry I don't have anything to kneel down and sing in your voice. When you Google canary at this time of writing, you don't get the bird, but instead a comprehensive home security system linked to your phone with night vision and a 90 decibel alarm. I don't know where any of the scars are on your body. I've never gotten that far. This isn't mysticism. It's a postcard in a D&D campaign that your character should try to send home, except you never thought that far behind, so your character burns it instead. For a spell. Paper has an armor class of 11, along with cloth and rope. So when I put my heart away for the night in its crystal glass ice cage, it'll be slightly better off at AC 13 than when I bury it in these pages, meant for you. And the last thing I'm going to read is the poem from the anthology. And the title is a character that I don't want to spoil anything, but it's a character that you don't get to meet until part 18 of The Return. So this poem is called Love Poem Composed Under the Influence of Carrie Page's Scream. America cannot survive a woman with no history. Dale's badge fails, the guns go in the fryer, and the night opens like not Laura's mouth when Sarah Palmer's spectral call sparks across identity to the fuse blown in every woman who lives to adulthood. A perfect miracle. Like, do we not remember Laura is an angel at the end of Fire Walk with Me? And the fact that she only sees the angel just proves my point. Aren't we simply the things that disappear from our childhood bedrooms, one by one? only to surface again when we're dead or in a dream. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Next up, we have Sarah Matson, whose poetry has been nominated for Best of the Net in 2019 and can be found at the forthcoming Kissing Dynamite, Bone Boutique, and Pink Plastic House, a Tiny Journal, and elsewhere. Sarah's chapbook, Electric Grandma, is available from Another New Calligraphy. She lives in Chicago with her rad husband and cats.
Hi there, Tom, Kristen, and Jeremy. Thank you so much for having me back to Performance Anxiety. I'm really thrilled to be reading with you amazing folks. These Poems Are Not What They Seem is a really incredible anthology. I'm really honored to be a part of it. My first poem tonight is inspired by one of my very favorite Twin Peaks characters, Harold, aka the Orchid Man. So this poem is called Harold. Orchid Man, green, house-bound, all thumbs and steam. Eyes that synthesize, snap, shot after shot, fistful of creamed corn secrets. Her words hydrated leaves, blooms curling inside his chest garden, finally spilling out, clawed eyes into the waiting mouth laps of jealous creatures. Hide in my plant cupboard, cellophane girl, written in blood ink or examined with 3D glasses. Let us cheers to the delectable solitude of this lonely life and the next. My next Twin Peaks poem is about everyone's favorite secretary superhero, Diane. This also has a reference to the return of Twin Peaks. This is called Diane. Sainted cabaret dancer, a fresh tape, slide that raw plastic, click, whir of film. She is the kind of woman who sends flowers after a kill. She remembers anniversaries, shadow dancing, dry cleaning, and the ambition of a sharp wig, cut like a mirror image, reflecting velvet back into the aching womb of that damn red room. My final poem tonight, I'm super proud to say, is in the These Poems Are Not What They Seem anthology and is inspired by Renette Pulaski. This is called Renette. Urban legend captured in motorcycle headlights. Whispers smeared across train tracks. Barefoot and unbound, bird-holed flesh. Pearl-handled revolver, names faintly etched by precision fingernail. Keep walking through fire, sewing ivory slips together, lace torn, lips raw, borders spread like hips, purposefully careless. Sleep now in my one arm, the left forever thrashing in the waters of your basin. Thank you so much for having me back. I am Sarah Matson.
Thank you, Sarah. And I neglected to mention you can find Sarah on Twitter at Skeletor Writes. That's at SKELETORWRITES. Next up, we have Megan Burns. Megan Burns is a publisher at Trembling Pillow Press. She co-directs the New Orleans Poetry Festival and has 4 books with Lavender Ink. She can be found on Twitter at Bloodjet Poetry, BLOODJETPOETRY. And to find out more about the New Orleans Poetry Festival, you can go to nolapoetry.com. Go ahead, Megan.
Okay. I'm going to read from, I had a chapbook that came out with Horseless Press in 2016 that's called Sleepwalk with Me. So all of the poems are based on Twin Peaks. And one of them was accepted for the anthology, which I was really excited about because I love Twin Peaks. The first one I'll read is called Between Life and Death. It has an epigraph from Rumi that says, "We are born and live inside black water in a well." What a cakewalk, a trammeling. Gather me, gather, a commingling of loves I have bruised against. Dream of winged beastlings who guard our terror. What do you become when the people you have loved, you the longest, start to disappear? The way touch becomes a scarcity, an aging body, a temporal reminder to eventual, we live inside the dream. A creature capable of missing what it's never had. It is less that we care who killed Laura Palmer, and more that we want to be reassured it is not us, and it is not happening to us, and we are not a part of a world untangling, but rather spectators, safe side of the mirroring, tapping on the glass and its unresponsiveness. Dear lullaby, row against the beating, above the shatter, eclipsing the heart's pooling and thrust, empty-headed, I let you, fall you into me, descent from stardust, the particulars that stun us. And then I will read the one that's in the anthology. It's called The Palmers, and it has an epigraph from Foucault's History of Madness. It says, the institution of the family traced a circle of reason, and outside it lurked all the perils of insanity. The Palmers. What of the mother, dead girls for a milking gaze, incest forgiven, all trespass, the male body, a sexling. Sexless, daughters are danger, fluid, disappearing laughter. A mother is an ineffectual distance, invisible, alcoholic, paralyzed, opiate fixate. When you stop looking at your daughter's body, it's a legacy handed down, a new possession. Freud's seduction fantasy, a fucking of the father, is beyond the body, marked not flesh to flesh, but hardening power blooms just beyond reach of lips, tender sprouted. The law of the father bids you lay me down, whom you touched governed, but in no way constrained the handling. Women exist to define men. There is no virgin lynched whoredom when the object of fear and hate is the woman. Or as Major Briggs tells us, fear and love open the door. You must always pass the Black Lodge to get to the white. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you very much, Megan. Next up, we have Sarah Lynn Rogers. Sarah is the editorial assistant for Soft Skull Press and a contributing editor for Catapult, and was formerly the fiction editor for The Rumpus. She is the author of Inevitable What, a poetry chapbook, and is seeking a home for Cosmic Tantrum, a full-length poetry collection. You can find her on Twitter at Sarah Lynn Writes. That's SarahLynWrites, or more info at sarahlynrogers.com. As an aside, I'd also like to thank Sarah on behalf of Kristen and Justin and I for her extensive editorial assistance with this anthology. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you guys so much for including me in the anthology and inviting me to this reading. I'm going to read for my first poem the one that's in the anthology, and for my second poem, another Twin Peaks one that I was inspired to write while coming up with poems for the anthology. The first one's called The Orchids Curse. Donna calls them boys, the 20-year-old men in her reverie, seated before orchids in the dim home of a strange man who records her words in cursive. She tells him, I was about 13 years old, 14 maybe, when she and Laura walked in tight skirts to a bar to pick up boys. The Orchid Man, the recluse who's scribbling her words, touches his thumb to his lips when she pauses after, they make us feel like we're older. Donna knows what she's doing, or knows the desired effect is taking hold, but doesn't know why she desires it, or him, or if she does. In the orchid room, she stands to sway her body, touch her hips, push her collar below collarbones. In the memory, she's 13, a child, naked with 3 adults, though she doesn't say it that way. It's skinny dipping, she suggested in the story, triumphant like she'd bested Laura, her 13-year-old sexual rival. This framing magically absolving the boys, writer, director, TV audience of culpability, for this particular realized fantasy. Not entirely fantasy, young girls pitting themselves against each other for some man's benefit, offering up bodies they've hardly had time to own. One of the men in Donna's memory swims to her and they kiss. That was the first time I ever fell in love, Donna concludes, though I don't believe she believes this. It's a man's vision of a teen girl's wish, one a writer spun for her to spin for the recluse, to get whatever it is she wants. Laura's diary, the recluse's kiss, the chance to rouse her boyfriend's jealousy, or all three. Her confession mentions a dark body of water, and is one. Pool of collective unconscious, Donna performing projected desires, the scene she describes archetypal, familiar, real as dream. Donna, the actual person, wants the man to covet her as an object, and Donna, the character, is one. Piece on a black and white game board, chevron zigzags below heavy red stage curtains. My next poem is called Douglas Firs. The man on television wants the name of the pines he scents in the wind. Makes sense. He is the specialist of agents, investigator in a small apple pie town. I want to know what Cooper was like as a teen, before he had a badge or tailored suit, bone structure like a drawing captioned handsome. I bet he wore thick glasses, eyes weak, up late, flashlight shadowboxing his sheets, reading about telekinesis, how to conduct a seance, staircases to the sky in open fields. For one entire year in middle school, I couldn't wear pants. String bean legs were long, but I had no hips. Covered them in pioneer skirts, glasses, holes where my canines should have been. Handed my crush a Valentine, but blundered, wished him a happy Thanksgiving, then died, then walked to pre-algebra. I bet that Cooper got beat up, smacked around because he wouldn't hit back, picked up and set in a trash can. I picture him reedy, wheezing, high eyebrow innocent, climbing out of the aluminum like, oh well, here we go again, brushing chip bags and banana peels from a sport coat he thinks makes him look sharp. My mind was always elsewhere, out of a body that looked like a child's until high school. I studied runes, I played The Sims, learned that you must never give the Fae your real name. You are kind of a dud, my mother mused, when I said it didn't matter what I wanted to plant in the garden she was planning. I'd meant I wasn't used to having a say. A nerve gone raw eventually goes dead. How do you revive desire from that? How did I teach me to want? I knew the names and shapes of what I saw, observed and cataloged. Lamb's ear, borage, Japanese maple, marigolds, gardenias, polka dot plant, hibiscus, geranium, orange tiger lily, morning glory, creeping time. All my life, the naming was enough. It was never enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And that concludes our live readers. And we've got 7 more poets from the anthology who were kind enough to send in recordings of work. Some of them just unavailable tonight and some of them overseas. But the first on our list is Jack Bedell, who was a professor of English and coordinator of creative writing at Southeastern Louisiana University, where he also edits Louisiana Literature and directs Louisiana Literature Press. His latest collections are Elliptic, Revenant, and No Brother. This Storm University Press, fall of 2018. He served as Louisiana Poet Laureate from 2017 to 2019. You can find him on Twitter at Jack Bedell. That's JackBedell.
That's our Waldo. I wonder what the bird remembers when it croaks out Laura. Does the sound of a flashbulb pop in its mind as the name begins in its throat? Can it feel her cold skin on the bottoms of its feet? Smell her perfume for just a moment before it rolls that aura? It has to think about her eyes. Everyone does. It has to connect that name to her laugh, Miners are smart enough to count. It knows how many hands were in that last room, how many fingers wrapped around her throat, how many breaths she took before the cloth was thrown over its cage, before everything became stale air, hungry dark, and the naked sound of an empty cabin.
Our next recording is from Leah Collin. Leah Collin is a poet, playwright, and forever fan of Special Agent Dale Cooper. Her poems reside in Canadian and American journals, including Barron magazine, where she's a contributing editor of poetry. A few years ago, she got her MFA in the Black Lodge. Meanwhile, she lives in Vancouver, BC. You can find her on Twitter at Leah J. Collin, that's LeahJCallen.
Black Lodge Heart. Are you the Laura, the one, the little girl who lives down the lane, the smile like a sun, ominous whooshing, a face full of light? No, you are the light, radiating soft and bright, whooshing intensifies. Men are drawn to you with their moth mouths. The darkness always follows the light. We are watching. You are dead, yet you live. There are too many people in the mansion and not enough rooms. Are you the one with the heart of gold that cracked in half like a broken poker chip? Buried, but back in the game again. Laura, Laura, Laura. A choir sings in the middle of nowhere. There's always music in your golden, blood-spattered hair. Jukebox music crooning, unwrapped from plastic like a Christmas gift beneath the evergreens where sometimes time bends back. Are you Laura Palmer, hungry fire, made clean by water, very soft whooshing? You are, they cannot kill you. Hello, Agent Cooper. Ifok Arrow, Dean Anog Eru. We're gonna need more coffee.
Our next poem comes from Juliet Cook, whose poetry has appeared in a multitude of magazines. Two of her recent poetry chapbooks are Dark Purple Intersections Inside My Black Doll Head Irises, and another set of ripped out bloody pigtails. She has another new chapbook, The Rabbits with Red Eyes, forthcoming in 2020. You can find her on Twitter at nonvanilla, that's NONVANILLA, or on her website, julietcook.weebly.com.
And this is Tom just saying that Juliet was kind enough to let us use this recording again from previous performance anxiety reading. So she mentions it's her second poem when, of course, it's her first, and this is readable in the anthology.
This is Juliet again. The second one is forthcoming in an anthology called These Poems Are Not What They Seem, based on Twin Peaks. And it's called I'll Eat You. In this diorama, the most likable agent of power turns bad. The good-bad hybrid appears to be urgently walking in circles, surrounded by long red curtains. This is a staged concert that never ends. He bangs his own head, cracks a mirror, and breaks space for more creatures to work their way inside your silently screaming brain. Dissociative identity disorder hides in the corner of your bedroom, hoping to break itself out of your face and rip the flesh off someone who doesn't believe your power. Listen, all you wanted was enough alcoholic ingredients for an unending supply of Bloody Marys while you watched the female lion bite deep into a larger creature's neck. The beef jerky screamed at you until you had to run out of the grocery store and end up at the bar. You tried to maintain your own space, but you were invaded. He called you a bull dyke lesbo who likes to eat cunt. And so you ripped his fucking throat into a bloodbath.
Our next reader is David Ralph Lewis, who is a poet and short story writer in Bristol, in the United Kingdom. When not writing, he enjoys dancing badly at gigs and attempting to grow vegetables. His first chapbook, Our Voices in the Chaos, was published by Selkooth Station in October 2019. You can find him on Twitter at David Ralph Lewis. That's DavidRalphLewis, or on his website at www.davidralphlewis.co.uk.
Hi, my name's David Ralph Lewis. I'm a poet from Bristol in the United Kingdom, and this is my poem for These Poems Are Not What They Seem. It's called We're Gonna Keep Her Out of It. Locals say her eyes are storm clouds seconds before the deluge. Her breath is liquid nitrogen, her hair a tangle of stripped, bent wires. They'll warn you, don't go near that house where she spends her sleepless nights, watching coyotes tear into carcasses, viscera spraying over her screen. School kids trade rumors like baseball cards. She killed her only daughter, or her husband did. Or she murdered them both 25 years ago or more. The end result is the same, an outline with no detail, an empty shell, a body consumed from the inside out. She's the screaming you ignore on the dance floor, the words you can never bring yourself to utter. She lives in the silence between one line and another. You can't imagine nothing, but Judy might show you if you're unlucky enough to dream deep. Be wary, residents tell you. Don't take the forest road to the house children avoid. You might hear her cry to you, as if from a great distance, and your world will implode. Thank you very much.
Our next poem comes from Juliet Vander Molen, who is an expat living in Wales. Her poetry has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net. Juliet is also the poetry editor for Mookie Chick magazine. Her books include Death Library, Mother May I, and Anatomy of a Dress. You can find her on Twitter at J_Vandermolen. That's J_VANDERMOLEN. And Anatomy of a Dress, her newest collection, is available for sale at JulietWrites.com.
I wanted to be Laura Palmer. I had secrets, but not the crown of a homecoming queen. I had boyfriends that did things I wasn't supposed to like, except I did. I smiled and made straight A's. I did all the right things, laughed in all the right places, did things I was supposed to like, except I didn't. Behind the shudder flutter of eyelids sleeping in dark dreams, I twisted in woods and scraped my knees, offered my throat and let things hurt me, did things I wasn't supposed to like, except I did. Between pages pulled from library shelves, found names for desires I tried to hide, read them until I fantasized it was me instead. Thought things I wasn't supposed to think, except I did. I wanted to be Laura Palmer, even when I saw her wrapped in plastic with blue lips and dead eyes. I wasn't supposed to want that, except I did.
Our next reader is Kaylee Tedesco. In 2018, Kaylee had a really fun Twin Peaks themed wedding, and she still has cardboard cutouts of Coop and the Giant in her family room. So she's obviously really honored to be here among fellow big fans of the show. You can find her on Twitter at Kaylee Tedesco. That's KaileyTedesco. And her newest collection, Forever House, will be available from White Stag Publishing later this year.
Hello, I'm Kaylee Tedesco, and this is H-Bomb Cherry Pie. This dust has already contused my blueness outwards. I'm dancing and dancing and dancing, and then they say a ghost can travel a power line, and so too my tulpa lightnings my sockets. I am nursing a body that is only a seed. I am chitting a membrane in pine dresser drawers, my log, sogs golden. I am dying impermanently. Judy Garland conjures a palace of curtains to hide behind beads, behind Venus de Milo. The oculus black preens my call forwards. I'm the swollen glass bottle of bodies so knocked over by forests. I'm the back of a veil, so wet and red. A feral astral projection shears the sweet tooth right from my death. Thank you.
And our last reader of the night is Johanna C Valente, who is a human who lives in Brooklyn, New York. They are the author of several collections, including Marys of the Sea, #Survivor, and Killer Baba Love Story, which is forthcoming from Vegetarian Alcoholic Press in 2021. She's also the editor of A Shadow Map, writing by survivors of sexual assault. You can find her on Twitter at Joanna Said, JoAnnaSaid.
My name is Johanna C Valente, and I will be reading the 2 poems I have in the anthology. Many thanks to Kristen and Justin and Jeremy for making this happen. The first poem is Killer Bob's First Kiss. Can you feel me in you? Mike asks, in your stomach, outside of your body. Everywhere around you, Killer Bob isn't afraid of anyone except for Mike. Sometimes he's afraid of Mike because Mike can do anything he wants. Killer Bob doesn't remember when he first met Mike. It's as if he always knew him, that Mike was him, another part of him. Which one was the original? Who was the vulture with the pitless stomach? Who was the hummingbird with daggers for claws, a mirage of a motherless ocean, no waves, no way to escape, no sounds except for the sound of Mike breathing in his sleep, breathing when he combs Killer Bob's hair every night, and he wasn't sure if he loved when Mike touched him, his hair traced the outline of his mouth, or if Mike's smell wasn't even a smell, but murder. And every night Killer Bob was murdered, all the victims wrapped in cellophane, that putrid gray skin bloating as if a family of beetles were forming underneath, waiting for the full moon to be born, waiting for their moment to find more bodies for no other reason except that they could. And he wasn't sure if this was Mike's plan all along, if he was Mike's plan all along, or if Mike just loved him too much, loved his son named Chaos more than he loved anything else. And why do I have this secret name? Killer Bob asked Mike one night, and Mike only said, "You are a man of many names. You deserve so much more than anyone could ever give you, even me, even you." The last poem is, When All You Have Is a Body. Your eyes are closed. You can't move. You feel like you are in a coffin, but you know you are just in a bed. Above you is a figure of a man, and you aren't sure if it's a Leland or Killer Bob or a ghost or just your imagination. You want it, but you don't want it. When you can see who it is, you want it to be Bob, but you are afraid of what he will feel like inside of you. What if you like it too much? Are you allowed to love a man, a boy who was born out of a black hole? Who is a black hole? What does this make you? Some part of a void? You are afraid of what he makes you see sometimes, his hands on your eyes and you can't move, and he laughs because he knows what you're seeing, and it feels like your body is going limp. You can't breathe, and you feel like dying is the only way to make it stop. He takes his hand away from you, and you are grateful, but you also love him so much you would do anything for him, even lie stiff in a coffin. While he's on top of you, something going in and out of your legs, and you aren't sure if you feel it or not. You want to. You want to feel something. There's a hand on your thigh right next to your crotch, opening up your body to reveal a swarm of butterflies and dead roses and centipedes curling into organs. And he scoops a handful and eats what he's found because he can never have enough of you. And you want him to know everything about you, even the things no one else knows. Not even these men you will grow up to fuck, because you need your body to be touched by other men in order to replicate this moment, because there's nothing else like it. And you hate yourself for liking it, and you hate yourself for being terrified, and you hate yourself because how he makes you feel. If you could, you would have stopped aging years ago, covered yourself in mud, and stopped breathing. Thank you so much.
And sadly, that brings us to the end of this month's Twin Peaks edition of Performance Anxiety. Thank you so much for listening to this group of Lynchian devotees, and we hope you will consider ordering These Poems Are Not What They Seem from apeppublications.com, where you can read many more of the poems, these poems and many more. I'd like to personally thank all of our contributors for trusting us with their work, and again, thank Tom and Kristen, who make this wonderful reading series possible. Next month's Performance Anxiety reading will take place on March 19th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. And it will be the first unthemed reading in a while, so please consider reaching out to one of the co-organizers if you'd like to participate. Until then, may the stars turn and a time present itself.